You know that feeling after a conversation in English ends when you're walking away and suddenly perfect word comes to you? You knew what you wanted to say. You had the answer, but in the moment, nothing came out. If that has ever happened to you, I want you to know something. That experience has a name, and there is neuroscience behind it. And today, I am going to explain exactly why it happens and what you can do about it. That gap between understanding English and speaking English under pressure is one of the most frustrating experiences a language learner can have. And most people spend years thinking it means something is wrong with them. It doesn't. I know this feeling personally. I am a Spanish speaker. Spanish is my second language, and I've had that exact experience. In this video, I am going to show you 3 reasons why this gap exists. Things that are happening inside your brain that most teachers never explain. There's what's happening inside your working memory the moment pressure enters. There's what's happening with your sense of identity when English takes away your voice. And there's one psychological switch that determines whether you will open your mouth at all or stay silent. By the end of this video, you will have research-backed strategies to start closing the gap. My name is Maxine, and I am a professional English teacher with a background in the psychology and neuroscience of language learning. I help multilingual professionals overcome English speaking anxiety so that you can express who you really are in English with confidence. In my last video, we looked inside the brain at the exact moment that your English freezes and why that happens. If you haven't seen it yet, I will link it below. Today, we are going to go one layer deeper because that frozen moment actually starts long before you even open your mouth. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. So let's get started. Linguists and cognitive scientists divide language fluency into 2 very different categories. Receptive fluency is your ability to read and understand language, listening and reading. Productive fluency is your ability to produce language, speaking, and writing. Here's the thing that most English learners, and honestly, a lot of English teachers, do not fully understand. These 2 skills are not the same. They do not develop at the same rate. They do not make your brain work as hard in the same way. Speaking is significantly harder. And today I'm going to show you exactly why. When you are listening or reading, your brain is working like a detective. It uses context or background knowledge and patterns to piece together meaning. Your brain is a meaning-making machine. So even when it does not understand every single word, it can fill in the gaps. And it's remarkably good at doing this. But when you're speaking or writing, producing language, there are no gaps to fill. Your brain has to generate meaning entirely from scratch. You are building in real time, choosing the right words, constructing the right grammar, monitoring pronunciation, all while someone else is waiting for you to respond. These are 2 fundamentally different cognitive tasks. One is input, one is output, and output is much harder. So the first thing I want you to hear clearly, having stronger receptive fluency than productive fluency is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the completely normal, scientifically expected result of how language development happens in the human brain. You are not behind. You are asymmetric. However, asymmetry can be corrected. But before I talk about how to correct it, there are a few primary reasons why people stay stuck there. And as an adult language learner, you need to understand these. Otherwise, people can stay stuck there for a very long time. So why does this gap exist? Well, there are 3 reasons, and they work together. The first one starts inside your brain, specifically your working memory. Think of your working memory as your brain desk. It's the space where all your active thinking happens. And that desk has a very limited amount of space, especially in your second language. So when you speak English, that desk fills up fast. You are choosing words, building sentences, monitoring pronunciation, and listening to the other person, all at the same time. Now, when pressure enters, your brain does something automatic. It switches to what it knows best. It forms the thought in your native language first, and then tries to translate it back into English in real time. Researchers call this the translation trap, and it is enormously energy intensive. The translation trap uses a lot of that working memory capacity. The same working memory capacity that you need to speak English. And then, worst case scenario, anxiety enters. The desk was already full. Your working memory runs out of space. System crash. Your mind goes blank. That is not you forgetting your English. That is your brain hitting its max working capacity. The second layer is one that most English teachers never talk about. Language is not just a communication tool. It is how we express who we are. Our intelligence, our humor, our expertise, our personality. Think about who you are in your native language. You can make a joke and time it perfectly. You can argue your position. You can walk into a room and have people listen to you because your words carry the full expression of who you are. Now, think about what happens in a high-pressure English moment. The person that could explain anything clearly, the expert who can gain respect in their field, sounds like a beginner. Researchers call this a threat to your linguistic self-confidence. It's the psychological construct built on how you judge your own competence in a language, combined with the anxiety that comes from that judgment. This is not a metaphor. Your brain activates a real stress response. The panic you feel is biological, and it makes complete sense. When an intelligent, capable person cannot express who they are in a language, that's not just frustrating, it's disorienting. And it feels like losing yourself. And this feeling has a direct impact on what happens next. That third layer is called willingness to communicate, or WTC. It is the final psychological gate you open before you even open your mouth to speak. Even if you know the words, even if you know the grammar, if your willingness to communicate is low, you will not speak. So here is how it happens. The translation trap fires. Your working memory fills up. the identity threat kicks in. You feel yourself shrinking, and your willingness to communicate drops to zero. So you give a one-word answer, or you say, I don't know, even when you do, or you let someone else speak. And in that moment, it feels safe. But over time, avoidance makes the problem worse. Every time you protect yourself from the discomfort of speaking, your brain logs it as evidence. Evidence that speaking English is threatening. Your willingness to communicate gets lower, and the gap between your speaking and understanding gets wider. So that's the cycle. And that is exactly what we are going to break right now. Everything I just described, the translation trap, the identity threat, the collapse of your willingness to communicate, all responds to one process. Researchers call it automation, and it means changing where your language knowledge lives in your brain. Right now, your English knowledge lives mostly in your declarative memory system. That's the system that stores facts and rules. You know the words, you know the grammar, you can access them given enough time and a low-pressure environment. That's why you can find the perfect word after a conversation ends. The knowledge is there, but it's stored in the wrong place. Fluent speakers are not working from their declarative memory system. They are working from their procedural memory system. It's the part of the brain that runs skills automatically without conscious effort. It's the same system that lets you ride a bike or type without looking at your hands. When language moves into your procedural system, something fundamental changes. Your brain stops needing to translate. It maps meaning directly onto English. Because it is no longer doing that energy-intensive translation work, your working memory frees up. And when your working memory frees up, opportunities for those blank mind moments decrease. And then the identity threat loses its power. Your willingness to communicate rises. So the question is, how do you move English from declarative memory to your procedural memory system? Well, the research is clear. You have to produce English, not just consume it. Researchers call this pushed output. It means practicing English in situations where you are actually required to generate language, not just receive it. Now, I want to be very specific about what pushed output is, because many of my students are already working very hard. They are studying every day, and they are frustrated because their speaking is not improving at the same rate as their understanding. Here is why. Studying more builds your declarative memory, your knowledge about English. It does not automatically build your procedural memory, your ability to do English, to speak English under pressure. You can know everything about English and still freeze in a real conversation. Many of my students do. Vocabulary games, word banks, that's valuable. But recognizing a word and producing it are fundamentally different brain tasks. Repeating after a native speaker trains your pronunciation, also valuable, but you are not generating the language yourself. You are copying it, and your brain knows the difference. Shadowing is one of my favorite fluency tools, and I recommend it. It builds rhythm, intonation, listening skills. However, it is not pushed output. You are still following someone else's words, not generating your own. Effective pushed output means using connected English, real words, incomplete sentences in a meaningful context. It means being in authentic, real-time communicative situations where someone is actually waiting for your response. And it means stretching yourself just beyond what currently feels comfortable. That stretch in a safe, low-stakes environment is exactly what forces your brain to build new pathways. In a good English learning situation, you will feel a little uncomfortable, but that discomfort is not a warning sign. That discomfort is the feeling of your brain building new pathways. Every time you push yourself to produce English, even imperfectly, you are making a pathway into your procedural memory. Those pathways lead to fluency over time. English starts to feel a little less like construction work. Your working memory has more room. The translation trap happens less and less, and your willingness to communicate rises. You begin to feel confident in English. And when you feel confident, you can finally let people see who you really are. Let me tell you what I want you to walk away with today. You are not behind. You are not someone who is just not good at languages. You are in the middle of a neurological transition from knowing English to doing English, from declarative to procedural. And the gap between understanding and speaking is not a personal failure. It's the space that every language learner crosses before they reach fluency. In English, we call this the messy middle. And the most important thing you can do in the messy middle is to keep going. Now, in education, we know that the way you think about your own learning has a direct impact on your results. What you think affects how you feel affects the actions you take, and your actions determine your results. So before you go, I want to give you 3 reframes. These are not phrases I invented to make you feel better. They are neurologically accurate descriptions of what is actually happening in your brain right now. Take out a pen and paper to write them down and remind yourself, I understand English. I am building the speaking side now. The discomfort I feel is my brain building new pathways. Speaking imperfectly is how I become fluent. Write those down. Put them somewhere where you can see them. Use them to keep going through this messy middle. In my next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use AI as a speaking partner so you can get the kind of real-time communicative practice that builds procedural memory, even when you don't have a conversation partner available. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if today's video helped you see your English learning differently, please hit the like button. It helps other learners just like you find this content. And finally, comment below. What stops you from speaking English? Really, I want to know, because your answer will help me create content that helps you most. I'll see you in the next video. Keep going. Your brain is working harder than you know.